The shot opens on chaos. Rain slams into the pavement like nails, each drop exploding against the asphalt. Streetlights blur into streaks of gold and white as a man runs, staggers, really, through the narrow backstreets of the city. His breath comes out in sharp, torn gasps. One hand clutches his side. The other leaves a smeared trail of blood along brick walls as he passes. Sirens scream behind him. Not close enough to touch him yet, but close enough to promise they will. Viktor Moretti does not look like a king tonight. The man who once ruled boardrooms and back alleys, who decided life and death with a nod of his head, now limps like an animal with a shattered leg. His tailored black coat is soaked through, heavy with rain and blood. Every step sends a white-hot shock through his ribs where the bullet tore in and out, missing his heart by inches, cruel, precise inches. Betrayal always is. A car horn blares somewhere nearby. Footsteps echo at the far end of the street, too steady, too deliberate to be police. Viktor doesn't look back. He doesn't need to. He knows that rhythm. His own men. The Moretti syndicate didn't fall quietly. It cracked, splintered, and turned its teeth inward. One bad meeting. One sealed room. One gunshot meant to end everything. Viktor had survived, but survival came with a price. Tonight, he is no longer the man issuing orders. Tonight, he is the order. Find him, a voice had snarled earlier. Finish it. The city listens. Viktor rounds a corner too fast. His foot slips on wet concrete. Pain flares, blinding. He crashes into a wall, breath exploding out of him in a wet, broken sound. He slides down slowly, rain pouring over his face, mixing with blood, with sweat, with something dangerously close to panic. He tries to stand. His legs refuse. The world tilts, narrows. The sirens are louder now, overlapping with the low growl of engines. He fumbles at his waist by instinct, reaches for a gun that isn't there, lost somewhere between betrayal and flight. For the first time in 20 years, Viktor Moretti is unarmed. A laugh bubbles up in his chest. It almost becomes a cough. He bites it back hard. So this is how it ends, he thinks, not in a courtroom, not in a palace, in an alley that smells like rot and rain. Then, a soft sound. Bare feet on concrete. Viktor's head snaps up. At the mouth of the alley stands a little girl. She is small, too small to be alone out here at night. Her oversized sweater hangs off one shoulder, stretched thin at the elbows. Her legs are bare, streaked with grime. Dark hair clings to her face in damp curls, and her toes curl instinctively against the cold ground. They stare at each other. The city seems to hold its breath. Viktor's mind reacts before his body. Witness, risk, liability. In his world, this moment would already be decided. A single motion, a single command, no loose ends. But his body doesn't move. Maybe it's the blood loss. Maybe it's the way her eyes widen, not with recognition, but with fear sharpened by intelligence. Maybe it's because she doesn't scream. She doesn't run. Instead, she lifts one small finger and presses it gently to her lips. "Don't make a sound," she whispers. Her voice is barely louder than the rain. Viktor's heart slams, so hard it hurts more than the bullet wound. "You shouldn't be here," he rasps. His voice sounds wrong to his own ears, hoarse, weak, human. "I know," she says quickly. Her eyes flick past him down the street. The sirens swell again, then fade slightly as they overshoot the block. "They're looking for you." A laugh almost escapes him. "Of course they are." "You don't know who I am," Viktor says. She shakes her head. "Doesn't matter." The simplicity of it hits him harder than any accusation ever has. "Doesn't matter." She steps closer. The smell of damp fabric and cheap soap reaches him, something painfully ordinary. She looks at the blood soaking his sleeve, the way his hand trembles against the wall. "You're hurt," she says, as if stating the obvious. Then quieter, "They'll kill you." Yes, Victor answers honestly. Her jaw tightens. She glances toward a dim hallway entrance a few doors down, then back at him. Her decision is already made by the time she looks into his eyes again. "Come on," she whispers urgently. "I'll hide you in my room." Before Victor can argue or threat or refuse, she grabs his hand. Her fingers are small, warm, trembling. And she pulls. Pain screams through his body as he forces himself upright. He nearly collapses again, but she braces herself against him with surprising determination, shoulder pressed into his side. Each step is agony. Each breath feels like broken glass. They reach the apartment building just as headlights sweep past the alley entrance. Voices shout. Boots pound against wet pavement. The girl slips inside first, tugging him after her. The door creaks open, then shuts. Darkness swallows them whole. For a moment, Victor can hear nothing but his own heartbeat and the rain pounding against the building. The hallway smells of mold and old paint. Somewhere upstairs, a baby cries. Somewhere else, a radio murmurs softly. The girl doesn't let go of his hand until they reach the very last door at the end of the corridor, cracked, chipped, barely holding onto its hinges. She eases it open. Inside is a room so small Victor almost laughs again. One mattress on the floor, a thin blanket folded neatly at the corner, a single chair with a broken leg propped against the wall, peeling paint, no television, no pictures. Nothing. "This is my room," she says, breathless. "You have to be quiet if they hear you." She doesn't finish the sentence. She doesn't need to. Victor stumbles inside. She closes the door softly, carefully, like she's done this before. She presses her ear against it, listening. Outside, voices echo down the hall. Police open up. A knock at a neighboring door, angry, loud. The girl motions frantically. Victor lowers himself onto the mattress, gritting his teeth to keep from crying out. Sweat beads along his brow. His vision blurs at the edges. She pushes an old wardrobe slightly away from the wall, revealing a narrow space behind it, barely enough room for a grown man to squeeze into. "Back there," she whispers, "hide." Victor hesitates. In his life, people have hidden from him, never for him. He looks at her again, really looks. She is terrified. He can see it in the way her hands shake, in the way she keeps swallowing. But she doesn't back away, doesn't reconsider. "Why?" he asks softly. "Why help me?" Her answer is immediate. "Because nobody helped my mom," she says. Footsteps approach their door. A fist bangs against it. "Open up." The girl pushes Victor toward the hiding space. "Please." Something cracks inside him. He squeezes into the narrow gap behind the wardrobe just as the door handle rattles. She slides the wardrobe back into place with a soft scrape, then hops onto the mattress, pulling the blanket over her shoulders. The door bursts open. Two officers stand in the doorway, rain dripping from their caps. One shines a flashlight around the room. The beam passes inches from Victor's face. His lungs burn. "Anyone else here?" one officer demands. The girl shakes her head. "Just me." "Your parents?" "I don't have any." The flashlight lingers on her face. Her eyes don't waver. After a tense moment, the officers leave. The door shuts. Silence rushes back in like a wave. Victor presses his forehead against the cold wall behind the wardrobe. His chest shakes, not with pain, not with fear, but with shame. Because for the first time in his life, someone innocent has chosen to protect him. And he knows, deep in his bones, that he does not deserve it. If you were the one witnessing this first moment, what would you have done? Before the full story continues, please consider subscribing. I worked incredibly hard to craft this story just for you. The rain does not stop. It drums against the thin roof of the building in uneven rhythms, seeping through cracks, dripping down the walls like the city itself is sweating fear. Somewhere in the distance, sirens continue to wail, fainter now, but still close enough to keep the night sharp and restless. Behind the crooked wardrobe, Viktor Moretti presses his back against the wall and tries to remember how to breathe. Every inhale scrapes his lungs raw. Every exhale carries the copper taste of blood. His shirt is soaked through, clinging to his skin, and the wound in his side pulses in time with his heartbeat, hot, insistent, unforgiving. He has survived gunfights, ambushes, and assassinations. But this waiting is worse. Outside the wardrobe, the little girl sits on the mattress, legs tucked beneath her, hands clenched tightly in the blanket. She stares at the door long after the officers have gone, as if expecting it to burst open again at any second. Her name is Lina. Viktor learns it only because she whispers it to herself, like a reminder, like a prayer. "It's okay," she murmurs, though she isn't sure who she's speaking to, herself or the bleeding stranger hiding in her room. They're gone. The words feel fragile, temporary. She waits another full minute before moving, then another. Finally, she slides off the mattress and carefully pulls the wardrobe aside. Viktor nearly collapses forward when the pressure holding him upright disappears. He grips the edge of the wardrobe, knuckles white, jaw clenched to keep the groan trapped in his chest. Lina gasps quietly, "You're worse." He forces a crooked smile, "I've been better." She helps him back onto the mattress, her movements hesitant but deliberate. Up close, he can see the bruises on her arms, old ones, yellowing, fatting, signs of a life that has already demanded more from her than it should have. She notices his gaze and pulls her sleeves down quickly. Silence stretches between them. This is the moment Viktor has waited for, the moment where fear turns into clarity, where the child realizes her mistake, where she asks him to leave, where survival instincts kick in and kindness evaporates. But Lina doesn't tell him to go. Instead, she kneels beside him and looks at the wound soaking his shirt. "You're going to bleed out," she says matter-of-factly. "Yes," Viktor agrees. She blinks. "You're not supposed to agree with that." "I don't lie," he says. That earns a tiny, humorless smile from her. She stands and rummages through a small plastic box under the bed, pulling out a roll of gauze, half-used antiseptic wipes, and a cracked bottle of water. "You can't die here," she says. "They'll blame me." The words land harder than any threat ever has. "I won't," Viktor promises, and for the first time in years he means it. As she cleans the wound, her hands shaking, breath shallow, Viktor's mind drifts backward unbidden. He remembers another room, another night. A boy hiding under a table while his parents screamed in the next room. The sound of glass breaking, of fists, of something precious being destroyed slowly and loudly. He remembers the smell of cheap whiskey, the way his mother had whispered, "Stay quiet, Viktor. Don't make a sound." He had stayed quiet. Too quiet. By the time the screaming stopped, it was already too late. "I used to hide like this," Lina says, suddenly breaking his thoughts, "when my mom was sick." Viktor looks at her. "She worked nights," Lina continues, eyes fixed on the blood-stained gauze. "Sometimes she didn't come home. Sometimes she did, but not really." Not really. The phrase carries more weight than its words. "She said being kind was the only thing nobody could take from you," Lina adds softly, "even when everything else was gone." Viktor closes his eyes. In his world, kindness was a currency, a weakness, a mask worn only long enough to be exploited. He built an empire on fear because fear was reliable. And yet, here he is, alive, because a child believed in something he spent a lifetime destroying. "Why are they after you?" Lina asks quietly. He considers lying. He considers telling her he's a businessman, or a thief, or a man in the wrong place at the wrong time. but the truth presses against his chest like the bullet wound. "Because I've done bad things," he says. "How bad?" "Very." She nods, absorbing that. "My mom said bad people aren't born bad, they get tired." Viktor lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "You're very wise for your age," he says. She shrugs. "I had to be." As the minutes pass, the city outside slowly exhales. The sirens fade into distant echoes. The tension eases just enough for exhaustion to creep in. Viktor's eyelids grow heavy. "No," Lina whispers sharply, noticing. "Don't sleep." "If I sleep," he says, "I won't feel the pain." "If you sleep," she counters, "you might not wake up." He opens his eyes again. The irony does not escape him. This child, guarding him against death. "Where is your family?" he asks. She hesitates. "My mom died last year," Lina says. "The landlord lets me stay here if I clean the halls. Sometimes neighbors bring food." "And your father?" She shakes her head. Viktor swallows hard. In his empire, men like him lived in penthouses, while children like Lina learned how to survive alone. The contrast sickens him. Footsteps echo again in the hallway. Lina stiffens. This time they are heavier, slower, not police. Viktor feels it instantly. "They're close," he murmurs. Her eyes widen, "the bad ones." "Yes." She looks around the room as if seeing it for the first time, not as home, but as a trap. "There's no back door," she whispers. "I know." They sit in silence as shadows pass beneath the door. A voice mutters something low and angry. A fist knocks once. Then again. Louder. "Open up," a man growls. Lina looks at Viktor, terror shining in her eyes. "What do I do?" she whispers. He reaches out, gripping her wrist gently. "You've already done more than enough," he says, "if they come in." "I won't let them," she interrupts. He studies her face, the fear, the courage, the impossible bravery. "You shouldn't have to be this strong," he says. "But I am," she replies. The knock comes again. Harder. "Last warning." Lina stands. She smooths her sweater, takes a breath. Before she reaches the door, Viktor speaks. "Lina." She turns. "If I don't make it out of this," he stops, searching for words he has never needed before. "You did a good thing, the best thing." Her chin lifts. "I know." The door handle turns. And with it something inside Viktor shifts, something ancient and heavy, finally beginning to crack. Which part of their past or personality touched your heart the most? The door opens slowly. Not kicked in, not forced. Just enough to remind everyone in the room that violence doesn't always announce itself loudly. A man fills the doorway, broad shoulders stretching the seams of his jacket, reins still clinging to his hair. His eyes sweep the room with practiced indifference, cataloging every detail in a fraction of a second. Behind him, two more shapes linger in the hallway shadows. Not police. These men move with a different confidence. No badges, no hesitation, no questions they don't already know the answers to. Lina stands in front of them, barefoot on the cold floor, hands clenched into the hem of her sweater. "Yes," she asks. The man's gaze drops to her feet, then back to her face. His mouth twitches, not quite a smile. "We're looking for someone," he says. His voice is smooth, polite, deadly, tall, hurt, dangerous. Lina tilts her head. "You're in the wrong place." Behind the wardrobe, Viktor holds his breath. He knows that voice. Marco De Luca. Once his most loyal enforcer. The man who toasted to Viktor's health 2 nights ago. The man who, according to whispers in the underworld, fired the second shot during the betrayal, just to be sure. Marco steps 1 foot into the room. "You live alone?" he asks. "Yes." "Parents?" "No." The lie is effortless now. That frightens Viktor more than the men. Marco's eyes drift to the mattress, the blood-stained gauze in the trash, the half-open wardrobe. Viktor's pulse roars in his ears. "Mind if we come in?" Marco asks. Lina doesn't move aside. "I do," she says. The hallway falls quiet. One of the men behind Marco chuckles. "Kid's got guts." Marco raises a hand, silencing him. He studies Lina closely now, not as a threat but as a problem. "You know," Marco says gently, "helping the wrong person can get you hurt." Lina meets his stare. "Helping the wrong person already got me hurt." Something flickers across Marco's face. Annoyance, curiosity, calculation. Behind the wardrobe, Viktor feels the weight of every life he has ever destroyed settle onto his chest. This is his fault. Every second Lina stands here, risking everything, is another debt he will never be able to repay. "I don't want trouble," Lina says. "Please leave." Marco exhales slowly through his nose. He glances over his shoulder at the men behind him. "Check the other apartments," he says, quickly. One man hesitates. "Boss." "Now." They move off, footsteps fading down the hall. Marco stays. He takes another step into the room. "You're a brave little girl," he says. "Brave can be good. Brave can also be stupid." Lina's hands shake, but she doesn't back away. "My mom used to say," she replies, "stupid is hurting people because you're afraid." Marco smiles thinly. Behind the wardrobe, Viktor shifts, just slightly. Pain flares. A breath escapes him despite his effort to keep silent. Marco's eyes snap to the wardrobe. Time freezes. "Did you hear that?" he asks. Lina swallows. "The pipes." Marco stares at her for a long, terrible moment. Then he turns toward the wardrobe. Viktor makes a decision. For the first time in years, he chooses someone else over himself. He kicks the wardrobe door open and steps out. The movement sends fire through his side, but he stays upright, shoulders squared. "Marco," Viktor says calmly. Lina gasps. Marco's eyes widen, not in shock but in satisfaction. "Boss," Marco says, "there you are." The men in the hallway rush back, guns already raised. Viktor lifts his hand slowly. "She had nothing to do with this," he says. "Let her go." Marco laughs softly, always the negotiator. Lina looks between them, horror dawning. "You know each other." "Yes," Viktor says. "I made a mistake trusting him." Marco's smile hardens. "You made many mistakes." One of the men grabs Lina's arm. "No," Viktor roars, lunging forward. The world explodes into motion. Marco shoves Viktor back hard. Viktor crashes into the wall, pain tearing a scream from his throat. Lina struggles, kicking and biting, but the man's grip is iron. "Stop," she cries. "I didn't do anything." Marco leans close to Viktor, voice low. "This is why you're weak now," he whispers. "You let things like this matter." Viktor's vision blurs. He thinks of the boy under the table, of his mother whispering, "Stay quiet," of everything he became because no one saved him. "Let her go," Viktor growls. "Take me." Marco considers it. Then, sirens again. Louder this time, closer. Police radios crackle somewhere below. Marco curses under his breath. "Drop her," he snaps. The man releases Lina roughly. She stumbles but stays upright. Marco backs toward the door, gun trained on Viktor. "This isn't over," he says. "You're bleeding, you're tired, you'll make a mistake." "I already did," Viktor replies. "I trusted you." Marco smirks. "See you soon." They vanish into the hallway just as police flood the stairwell. The room is silent again. Lina sinks to the floor, shaking violently. Viktor slides down the wall beside her. "I'm sorry," he whispers. "I should never have let this touch your life." She looks at him, really looks at him. You didn't, she says. You just showed up. She hesitates, then leans against him. Outside, the city howls. Inside, something fragile and dangerous has begun to form. Loyalty not born of fear, but of choice. And Viktor knows one thing with terrifying clarity. They will come back. And next time, kindness alone won't be enough. The night stretches on, heavy and uncertain. After the police voices fade and the stairwell grows quiet again, Lina locks the door with trembling hands and leans her back against it, as if her small body alone could hold the world out. Viktor watches her slide down to the floor. Only then does he allow himself to fully feel the pain. His body finally gives in. His knees buckle. He collapses onto the mattress, breath shuddering, fingers clawing weakly at the blanket. The wound in his side burns like molten metal. Every muscle trembles with delayed shock. Lina crawls over to him immediately. "You're worse," she whispers. "Yes," Viktor admits. She presses her lips together, fighting panic. Then she does something unexpected. She takes his hand. It's not to steady herself this time. It's to steady him. "Stay with me," she says softly, "please." No one has said those words to Viktor Moretti in decades. Stay. Not run, not fight, not kill. Just stay. He focuses on the rise and fall of her shoulders, on the warmth of her small fingers wrapped around his own, on the way her thumb rubs circles against his skin, absent-minded but sincere. "I used to think," Viktor murmurs, "that being alone was safer." Lina doesn't interrupt. "When you're alone," he continues, "no one can betray you, no one can disappoint you, no one can hurt you." She glances up at him, "But you get hurt anyway." The truth of it lands clean and sharp. "Yes," he says, "you do." She helps him drink water, cleans the wound again as best she can. Tears slip down her cheeks silently as she works, but she doesn't stop. "I wanted to be a teacher," Lina says suddenly. Viktor smiles faintly. "You still can." She shakes her head. "No, I mean before. When my mom was alive, she said I'd be good at it. She said I explained things nicely." "You do," Viktor says. "You saved my life with 3 sentences." That earns a small, broken laugh. "What about you?" she asks. "What did you want to be?" The question stuns him. No one has ever asked Viktor Moretti that. He searches his memory and finds a dusty, forgotten image, a boy sketching cars on scraps of paper, dreaming of engines and open roads. "I wanted to build things," he says quietly, "things that lasted." Lina nods. "You still could." The simplicity almost breaks him. Outside, dawn threatens the edges of the sky, but inside the room time seems suspended. They talk in whispers, about her mom's laugh, about how the city looks different at sunrise, about the sound rain makes on metal roofs. Something inside Viktor shifts with every word. He begins to see the world through her eyes, not as territory to control, but as something fragile worth protecting. And Lina begins to see Viktor not as a monster, but as a wounded man, dangerous, yes, but trying not to be. The peace does not last. It never does. A phone vibrates. The sound slices through the quiet like a blade. Viktor stiffens. Marco's number flashes across the cracked screen. Lina sees it too. "They're coming back," she whispers. "Yes," Viktor says grimly, "and they won't knock next time." He forces himself upright, pain screaming. The adrenaline barely masks how weak he's become. "There's no way out," Lina says. "No back stairs, no fire escape." Viktor looks around the tiny room, the thin walls, the single door. "A cage." "They won't stop," he says. "Not while I'm alive." She shakes her head violently. "Then we hide again." "No," Viktor says. "This time I protect you." She stares at him. "You're dying." "Not yet." Sirens echo again, but these are wrong, too few, too slow. A car door slams outside. Then another. Boots on concrete. Lina's breath comes fast and shallow. What do we do? Viktor reaches into his coat and pulls out something small and heavy, a silver ring engraved with an old family crest. He hasn't worn it in years. My father gave me this, he says, the only good thing he ever did. He presses it into her palm. Listen to me carefully, he says. If anything happens, if they get past me, you run. You take this ring to the address inside the engraving. There are people there who still owe me. They'll protect you. Her eyes fill with tears. You're talking like goodbye. I'm talking like a man who made too many mistakes, Viktor replies, and finally wants to fix one. A shadow passes beneath the door. A voice murmurs outside. Open up. Lina clutches the ring to her chest. Don't, she whispers. Viktor moves in front of her. The door explodes inward. Wood splinters, shouts fill the room, a gunshot cracks the air. Viktor lunges, body screaming but his mind clear. For the first time in his life, he is not fighting for power. He is fighting for a child who believed in kindness when the world gave her no reason to. And as the room descends into chaos, Viktor Moretti realizes something terrifying and beautiful. This is what redemption feels like. The door doesn't just break. It gives up. Wood explodes inward, splintering like brittle bones. The lock tears free from the frame, skidding across the floor. Cold air rushes into the room, carrying the smell of rain, gasoline, and gunpowder. Lina screams. Viktor moves before fear can catch him. He turns, spreading his body wide in front of her, arms outstretched like a shield. Pain erupts in his side as he shifts his weight too fast, but he doesn't fall. He can't. Not now. Not with her behind him. 3 men pour into the room, Marco first, eyes burning with triumph, followed by 2 others with guns already raised. There you are, Marco says, breathless and smiling. You always did like dramatic endings. Lina clutches the silver ring Viktor pressed into her hand earlier. Her knuckles are white. Her chest heaves. Go, Viktor whispers without turning. Now. She shakes her head violently. No. This isn't a request, he says. It's a promise. Marco notices the movement. His eyes narrow. Touching, he sneers. Didn't know you had it in you, boss. Guess even wolves play house when they're wounded. Viktor straightens. The room is spinning. Blood soaks through his shirt again, warm and slick, but his voice is steady. You want me, he says. I'm right here, let the girl go. Marco laughs. You still think this is a negotiation? He gestures sharply. One of the men lunges for Lina. Viktor reacts without thought. He pivots, slams his shoulder into the man's chest, and they crash into the wall together. The impact knocks the wind out of him, stars exploding behind his eyes, but he holds on. He fights. A gun fires. The sound is deafening in the small room. Plaster rains from the ceiling. Lina drops to the floor, screaming. Marco shouts something unintelligible as Viktor drives his elbow into the man's throat. The grip on him loosens. Viktor shoves the man away and spins just as another attacker rushes him. The world becomes noise and motion. Pain flares everywhere, his ribs, his leg, his side, but adrenaline drags him forward. He grabs the second man's wrist, twists hard, feels bone crack. The gun skids across the floor. Marco fires again. The bullet slams into Viktor's shoulder. He roars not in agony but in fury and keeps moving. This isn't how Viktor Moretti used to fight. Before, he calculated, delegated, watched from behind glass and bodyguards. This is different. This is raw. This is desperate. This is love, sharp and terrifying and new. Lina crawls toward the door, sobbing, clutching the ring in her fist just like Viktor told her to. She hesitates, looks back at him. Their eyes meet. He nods once. She runs. Marco sees her just as she reaches the hallway. No, he shouts. Viktor tackles him. They slam to the ground, rolling across broken furniture, fists flying. Marco is stronger, younger, uninjured. But Viktor has something Marco doesn't. Nothing left to lose. Marco punches him hard across the face. Viktor tastes blood. Marco tries to bring the gun up between them. Viktor slams his palm down, sending it clattering away. You should have stayed dead, Marco snarls. Viktor grips his collar, dragging him close. So should you. Police sirens explode outside, real ones this time. Loud, close, overwhelming. Marco freezes. Viktor doesn't. He headbutts him. Marco collapses, unconscious. Viktor slumps beside him, chest heaving, vision tunneling. The room tilts. Darkness creeps in from the edges. As officers storm the apartment, shouting commands, Viktor's last thought before the black takes him is not fear. It's relief. Viktor wakes to light. Soft white, blinding. For a moment, he thinks he's dead. Then pain rushes back in, sharp and undeniable. A machine beeps steadily beside him. He smells antiseptic, clean sheets, hospital air. He turns his head slowly. Lina is asleep in a chair next to his bed. Her hair is braided neatly now. Her sweater has been replaced with a clean sweatshirt 2 sizes too big. The silver ring hangs on a chain around her neck. For a long time, Viktor just watches her breathe. You survived, a voice says. A woman stands at the foot of the bed, a detective, judging by the badge clipped to her belt. Her eyes are tired but kind. Barely, Viktor replies. You saved that girl's life, she says, multiple times. He swallows, did she? She's safe, the detective says. Social services are involved, but she's asking for you. Viktor closes his eyes. I don't deserve that, he murmurs. The detective shrugs gently. Maybe, but she doesn't see it that way. Marco De Luca is arrested that morning. So are the rest of the men who came for Viktor. The betrayal is exposed. The syndicate collapses under the weight of its own rot. Viktor cooperates fully. He gives names, accounts, locations. It costs him everything. It gives him something back. 6 months later, the rain sounds different. It taps softly against the window of a small house far from the city. No sirens, no shouting, no shadows lurking at corners. Lina sits at a kitchen table, carefully coloring inside the lines of a book that smells like fresh paper. Outside, a modest workshop hums quietly. Viktor stands inside it, sleeves rolled up, hands greasy with oil as he tightens the final bolt on a small engine. He steps back, wipes his hands and smiles. It works. Inside the house, Lina runs to the window. It's alive, she shouts. He laughs, a real laugh, rough and unused but genuine. Later, they sit on the porch together as the sun sets. Lina fiddles with the ring around her neck. You said it was from your dad, she says. Yes. Does that mean it's sad? He considers that. It used to be. She takes it off and presses it back into his hand. Then you keep it now. It's different. He slips it onto his finger. It fits. Viktor looks at the girl beside him, the child who hid a monster and instead helped make a man. Thank you, he says quietly. For what? For reminding me who I could have been. She smiles. You're still becoming. The sun dips below the horizon. And for the first time in his life, Viktor Moretti isn't running from the dark. He's watching the light fade peacefully.